We're live.
Right on, man.
What's up?
Not much, dude. You're here.
I'm back 1 year later. Well, I had like 11 months.
11 months. You came
Yeah.
out in what?
I think
You came
July.
out July, and
Yeah.
then when did you come back again?
October.
That's right. We went bear
For,
hunting.
for we went bear hunting. Yeah, but it was super hot still.
Yep. And it stayed hot. It stayed like actually like right after you left, it cooled off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So welcome, guys. This is this is our second podcast that we filmed
This is
that we
second.
published.
Well, like third probably. We did one in here, and then we did like a on screen one, and then we haven't had time or even some of the connections.
Yeah. But
So
what we do have is the ability to take that cam link, right?
yeah.
But it's like taking the time to edit it is a bear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But now, well, I think this episode is going to be pretty special considering what we just accomplished, and
yep.
lots of great after actions, and I can even throw some B-roll over this.
Oh, we could absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be super rad. Actually, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So B-roll from the match and stuff like that.
We could actually fire a video up here, watch it, and then cut it and over the top of the conversation, right? So
Yeah, like
it's just like live commentary, man.
But for those, so if you guys are listening to this on the podcast, definitely check out the YouTube video that we'll post of this. I think it'll be a lot more enjoyable for you guys. But if you guys are driving to work or whatnot, we get it. But yeah, welcome back. Welcome to the Modern Day Sniper Podcast. My name is Philip Vallejo, and got my partner here.
And I'm Kalen Wojcik.
And, together we're Modern Day Sniper. But if you're new to the podcast, this podcast is for the modern day rifleman, and whether you're a professional military law enforcement sniper, a long range hunter, long range competitor, or even just enthusiast, we try, our focus for the podcast is to communicate relevant information in the game of long range shooting, to help you out with whatever you plan on doing with long range shooting, just to be better at your craft. And we're all students of the craft. No one's ever a master of it. And we're just here to share our journey with you guys. So hopefully you guys can learn from us.
Yeah, I learned. I was a student this weekend.
I think we both were. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning that happened.
Yeah. Dude, I think to even tee this or to start this off, we should like start like for the positional course release, and then like the load development, and like, hey,
wow,
what we're gonna do.
There's so much shit going on in the background.
Well, I guess I think it was so this past weekend was supposed to be backcountry hunter course 1,
right?
But because of the snow, we had to cancel it. And then I was like, okay, since that week's open, let's go ahead and shoot our first team match, Granite Creek. So that's how that went down. And then we saw each other in Montana 2 weeks ago for MS2OA. I gave you 500 bullets of the 110A tips, and I hadn't even started my reloading process yet.
Let's see. I started load development on those. I could check the Mighty Network because I made a couple posts, but I think it was like the Monday. No, it was, I started my OCW. I had some mentorship students here for hand loading. So it was like perfect. I set up 3 presses in there.
Yep.
And we just went through the OCW process. And I actually developed my OCW while those guys were doing it.
You know what's crazy is you did an OCW test. I'm gonna crack this open here. It's my White Claw, and I did the newer version that we talked about with Scott and with Scott Sowerly, where I did a jump test first, and then I found a charge weight, because I want, again, when we talked about this, I was like, I want to make sure we're running the same speed.
Sure.
Right. And so you did your OCW test, but you didn't know the velocity until after you figured out which groups or which charge rate you wanted to go with.
Yeah.
Right. Can you walk these guys through for those?
For sure. So the OCW is just, it's an older school method of developing a charge. I think it's a little bit better. It's very similar to a ladder test. It's very similar in the ladder test to that. Instead of shooting 1 bullet per charge weight at a target at, say, 600 yards away with a ladder test, you do 3 bullets or 3 cartridges per charge weight. And you shoot those at 100 yards. And what you do is you map out where the point of impact is, the average point of impact for whatever group it is that you shoot. So what I do is I plot that out. I use the Ballistic X program. I just take pictures of it. And then on the X and Y plots, I set up a chart in Excel and just say, hey, charge 38.6, X plot, Y plot. Highlight that, and then you build a graph. You build a bar graph off of it. And so what the bar graph allows you to do is see the flat spots, or they're not necessarily flat. They are on the graph. They're flat on the graph.
Yeah.
But what we're looking for is a consistent point of impact placement. And then on the graph, you'll watch it go down and then climb right back up again. And it'll be on the whatever spot has the most flatness across a specific set of charge weights.
Yep.
That's the optimal charge weight.
Okay. Yeah. So you're almost using, well, like with today's technology, Excel formats, and because I wonder if they had that stuff back when they developed it.
It's more back when they developed it. Like he puts a bunch of example targets up on his website because he wants to try to teach you what to look for in the groups, because they didn't plot it out back in at that point in time. So when I started to look at it, and I was like, man, okay, these group sizes can be, if you don't precisely triangulate the group size, you won't be able to really clearly see the commonality and the point of impact shift. So that's where the Ballistic X program comes in super clutch.
Yeah.
Because you just get to see it visually instead of trying to discern, because we haven't found out seating depth yet.
Yeah.
Right. So you can take a gamble. You can take a judge. So like, as an example, one of the mentorship students, he was shooting 109 grain hybrids. And I said, hey, when you start your OCW, let's figure out where the lands are. And once we figured out where the lands are, I said, I want you at 20 thousandths off the lands. As long as that's inside mag length. He was shooting a 260 Remington, and he was just barely inside mag length. And I was like, perfect. Then keep you at 20 thousandths, because I know those bullets will probably shoot really good at 20 thou.
Yeah.
Then the other guy was shooting 140 grain ELDMs.
Okay.
So we know that those ELDMs like being jumped about 50 to 80 thousandths. And so we measured his lands and looked at mag length and just kind of judged, all right, cool, we're going to start yours at 50 thousandths off.
Okay.
And both of those initial OCWs yielded some decent groups.
Nice.
So we knew that the seating depth was pretty close. The 260 dude, it was like we went up to the target, and every single one of his charge weights was like a freaking, the size of my pinky nail.
Nice.
So I was like, well, those bullets shoot really good. So now let's just focus on the charge. But even so, when the groups are super tight like that, and you look at the OCW on the target, you can see it clear as day. Yeah. Because you're only looking at one freaking hole pretty much.
Yeah. So you can almost just draw it out on the paper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can just see it be flat, and then it floats around. And it's like, everybody asks, like on the internet when I posted that, they're like, what does the X and the Y mean? And and I'm like, dude, it's totally arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's arbitrary. If you understand the concept of measuring from a datum point on the ogive of the bullet, then you would understand the concept of the XY plot. Yeah. It's just a baseline.
Yeah. I think it's something that we're definitely going to go into for our plug here, master class reloading.
Yep.
Right. Just different ways. Because like I said, I did a completely different way of checking my load. And, I shot off a freaking Red Star cluster on Facebook. I was like, hey, where are my friends that are shooting 6 Creed at H4350? Thanks in advance. And I got a bunch of stuff, right? And I shot a 41.2 at 60 thou off. That was probably the most common one. And some hot loads 42.4. And then so I did 41.4 and or 41.2, and like I said, I did a seating depth test first, where I started at 50 thou, did every 3 thou increments all the way up to like 64. And honestly, like that was almost pointless, because like the whole 50 to 60 was in a huge node, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and just start running these at like 56, right? That was my number. And then, 56 was my target. And then I went back and I looked at the loads that you were looking, or the pretty much the charge weight you were going. So I knew that since you were stuffing only like 39, right? Around 38,
That was
39.
where I started. This is interesting.
Yeah.
This is super interesting because we were trying to get everything lined up.
Yep.
And so both of these barrels on that gun, are proof prefits for arc actions.
Yep.
Right. They're having witnessed proof's ability to measure stuff. It's insane. Like literally every single one of those barrels is the same.
Yep.
Right. With the exception of perhaps the run out of the actual bore itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
However minimal that is.
Right.
So I was shooting Nosler brass, 108 ELDMs, out of the first barrel at 2950, 2940, and that's what I shot at Idaho with 38.6 grains of H4350.
Okay. Oh, that was
light.
super hot, right?
Well, no, that was super light. And everybody would look at that charge weight and they'd be like 38.6.
Yeah.
That's like, holy shit, man. That's like dasher speeds. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, bro, it's like, that's what's working and it's producing 2950 with 108. So I was like, okay, with these new A-tips, I was like, it's got to be it's got to be close.
Yeah.
It's got to be super close. But then the ogive profile of the bullet is different.
Yeah.
Everything's different. Seating depth is just all going to be different. So that bullet is going to interact with the throat completely different, and it's going to build a completely different pressure curve.
Yeah.
And so I started at 38.6 on the low end because I wanted to shoot those at right around that 2950 mark.
Yep.
Well, that yielded a velocity that was like 2860. And so I was like, whoa, this is really, then it was like, oh, okay, well, that's why the bullet dimensions are completely different.
Yeah.
The profile's different. You got to like start from complete scratch. And that's what I did. I started from complete scratch. And then I found a note at like 40.2 is what I loaded.
40.2.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in the meantime, during all of this, at the same time, I'm trying to break this barrel in because it was brand new from Short Action Customs. Because I sent it over to Mark and Alan over. I was like, hey, Kaylin and I want to start shooting team matches, but we're going to shoot 6 Creed because, I feel like the Creed is better at these field style events. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit versus like a BRA or even. We definitely could have gone by with a 6.5 Creed more, but honestly, like after watching Trace, again, we'll talk about that here in a second, like a lot this past weekend, like just super beneficial to have that Creed. And yeah, I mean, I found a bunch of old Lapua brass that I bought a couple years back before Gunworks, and thankfully there was like 200 virgin pieces of brass that were 6.5 Lapua. I was like, oh shit, perfect. So I resized them all of them. So I pretty much shot all virgin brass this week. It's like for the guys that are like, oh, I need to have once fired shit, or trust me, after the size of the fucking targets that we shot this week, like
it doesn't matter.
I will run fucking virgin brass anywhere.
It doesn't matter as long as the case prep is the same.
Yeah,
you're producing the same ammunition.
Yeah.
And that's another thing with like all of these posts that people are like the famous Magneto speed SD of 4, right? The SD doesn't mean anything because the sample size is way too small.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you need like a sample size of 30 plus to have a reasonably accurate SD. What we should be focusing on is the extreme spread.
Yeah. And $30, so 30 rounds with 8 tips over a Magneto speed. Whew, that's expensive.
Yeah, for sure. Just to find out a number that doesn't really, what is it like? It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
So the extreme spread. So I just ran, let's see, I did an OCW and I followed the same process.
Yep.
The OCW. I did it for a 308, shooting 178s to get prepped for MSTOA.
Okay.
That yielded an extreme spread of like 8 feet per second, and groups in the 0.2s out of a little 12-pound 308.
Yep.
Works, right? Then we did it with 2 students in here at the mentorship for reloading. They went through the exact process. Both of their loads yielded, the 260 had like an extreme spread of 12 feet per second. The 6.5 Creedmoor had an extreme spread of like 9 feet per second.
Nice.
And both of the students were freaking stunned that their rifle would shoot that good.
Yeah.
Like Ben's rifle went from shooting 3/4.
Was it Ben and Dimitri? Okay. Yeah.
So Ben's rifle went from shooting like a loose 3/4 ish down to like a 0.2. And he was like, this is the most effortless shooting I have ever fucking done. And I'm like, that's what happens when a gun shoots really well.
Yeah.
You realize how hard you're working when a gun shoots really well.
Yep.
You know, when you're just like, oh, that's fucking how it should be.
Badass.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's crazy that you and I came up almost with the same exact solution 2 different ways, right? Because you ended up doing was you finally got a velocity, and I think at this point in time I was still scrambling with the positional course. I'd finished everything. I was just finishing edits, right, which took a while. You know, so what I would do is in the break of or in between rendering, it would take sometimes 10 to 15 minutes. I'd head over to the loading room and either resize or yeah. So it worked out, and by the time I got done, I was like, because we released Thursday, and I think by Thursday morning or even Wednesday night, I had a velocity. Oh yeah, it was Wednesday night. I had a velocity because I did that. My ladder test from like 30. I think I started at like 39.0 and worked my way to 41.4 every 3 grains, right? And then I saw that huge node from like 39.3 to 39.9, and I just used 39.6, which yielded me 30.15.
Right, and that's bizarre because like I needed 40.1.
Yeah.
I'm shooting Nosler brass, large rifle primer, and a reasonable freebore dimension in that chamber. So it's like,
and you're jumping 70 thou now, right?
Yeah, I'm jumping 70 thou.
Yeah.
That's what I figured out.
And I think we ended up only being. We'll get into this here, but muzzle velocity wise, prior to, and this was the goal, we were only 10 feet per second off in theory, right? But our dopes lined up. Yeah, all the way out to 11:45.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got some stuff to talk about with that too. I mean, there was some stuff happening that
every competitor experienced.
Yeah, and that's interesting. But for us, it was like a 10th. It's funny because people were asking. They were like, "Hey, what do you guys always check your stuff?" Because people saw us at the 0 range at the end of day.
Because that's bad news, right?
Bad news,
when you see guys at the 0 range, and you're like, oh man, those guys had a bad day. Yeah. It's like actually after talking to Bill, we had a really good day 1.
We did, yeah.
And we were just checking for sanity because
it was a sanity
check.
Yeah. Sanity check.
And we were, like I said, we were hitting targets. There's a couple shots that obviously we missed questionably high, but we made the appropriate correction because we believe the bullet. We'll get into that here again. You're going to hear us say that a lot, believe in the bullet. But yeah, I mean, shit, it worked out. And it was just a good weekend, man. We released positional course Thursday. We met up on Friday, had a great week with Pete and Marchand. And man, so the Granite Creek Sniper Challenge, talking to Bill, it's been going on for 8 years now.
That's cool as hell.
My first RTC match actually was 4 years ago. I was telling you this.
And was that it?
That was the only RTC match that I've shot. That shot up to that point. Yeah, cool. And then I shot another one with Bo. That's Sniper Side.
Yep.
We got second there. Nick and Adam took first when they were partnered up. So then I shot just last week. Or the week before that, I shot a quick team match with Pete. Because it was just in the area, and we had some fun with that. But I use that more of probably just like a kind of get my head in the game with the team style shooting.
Well, dude, so I shot Sniper's Hide. I've shot at Carl's a bunch of times too. I've shot out at Wilbur, Kettle Falls, and he puts out some fairly small targets in some challenging conditions.
Carl, yeah,
Carl and that whole RTC area up there, right? And then when we came out to Granite Creek, he said in his brief, he was like, I listened to y'all last year and you got some small targets. I hope you're happy. And I was like, all right, okay, well, let's see what we're talking about here. And in the first stage, we were just like, oh shit, he's not fucking around.
Those are fucking small.
Those are fucking super small. So I thought that was badass because the things are super close nowadays,
Yeah.
right? They're so freaking close in
Yeah.
terms of like skill, gear,
Yeah.
and the field's getting deep,
Yep.
you know, with skill, and that's fucking rad. That's awesome. But when you go to a match like that, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Right. That's the difference. Shooting really small targets under those conditions that we had, like, you know,
Most of the targets
you had to have your shit dialed.
Most of the targets, honestly, there was a couple stages that were obviously kind of, I would say, feel good stages because they were pretty decent. But you have about 5 or 6 tenths wide.
Sure.
But most of the targets we did shoot were no more than 4 or 5 tenths wide.
Yep.
And I remember, I've been watching our videos, man. We were making like 0.1, 0.2 mil corrections just
to stay on the center of the plate.
No, just get back to target because of we didn't want to.
If we missed off the edge.
Yeah, if we didn't want to go too bold because then we would
get put off.
We'd push ourselves off the other side. So literally, like, I mean, a couple times we were like 0.3, follow with oh man, you're just off just follow with a 0.4. You know, don't make it any bigger than that, just because like holy shit.
And we were shooting well enough that we could hold a tenth.
Yeah, yeah.
And see a correction.
Yeah, that's right.
Those, you know, the rifles nowadays, the barrels nowadays, chambers and measuring and everything. It's just like, it's ridiculous how accurate we can get a rifle nowadays. It's pretty insane.
And that's what Bill was talking about. He's like, man, like, you know, there's no sense of me putting big ass meatball targets up here.
Because it's like you're not.
The shooters are shooting good. The gear,
you're not going to learn anything.
That's right.
You're not going to learn anything.
Man, yeah. So beautiful venue, beautiful location. And I'll just plug this now. I'll probably plug it again at the end of the podcast. But if you're in that area, or if you want to shoot a team style match, or just in the country, I believe, and this is he caps it at 48, and originally it was sold out, right? Mm-hmm. According to Bill, and then obviously a few people backed out, but now he wants to try to open up to 64 next year.
That's what he said. Yeah, he said, hey, if I do, you know, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's totally supportable.
Oh yeah,
we were finished so early.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, ridiculous. That's
5 minute,
and we got a late
stages.
start.
Yeah, yeah. 5-minute stages, and you know, for this match, the way it worked is, you know, we were able to essentially do a lot of our homework on the before the clock, right? Mm-hmm. So the way we go up and the RO briefs us, hey, these are your targets, and they're pair fire, or there's only one stage or there's 2 stages.
2 stages where
one shooter had to shoot the whole course of fire, and then the second shooter would go, which was the mover stage, and then
the big win stage.
Like with the 8-inch fucking plates all the way out to fucking 1,000.
Fucking how did that feel?
Blue circles,
these little tiny fucking dots out there.
Literally, like, damn it, smaller than fucking dinner plates out to 1,000. It was like we misranged the first one, mm-hmm. or the 5th one. But anyways,
we only had a couple bad ranges this past weekend.
Yeah,
1 or 2.
Yeah. So first stage, the spool stage, the only stage that was off our belly.
There's 2 stages.
There's two stages that were off our belly. One on day 1 and day 2. Day 1, we start off on the spool stage. Winds were probably still pretty light. I think 5 to 10. They didn't pick up.
Pick up yet. They hit right around like noon, 11:30 noon.
Yeah. But I got stuck on the left spool, and we were walking our way out, and we got to like, I think target 4 or 5, and like my cadence slowed down a lot because that fucking wobble would not go away.
I remember, dude. I was laying there, and I'm like, I need you to shoot. What are you doing?
And I was like, dude, I'm trying, bro. And like the clock is ticking, you know, and you know, I think we were clean up until that point. And I was like, Kaylin, I'm trying everything. I'm loading into this motherfucker. I'm pulling back. I'm like trying to like just like go neutral, and nothing is.
So I guess you could think about that from like a gaming perspective,
yeah.
Right? Like I had the more solid position. you could look at it and be like, hey man, just send them. Just send them, and we'll see if we can get them to connect.
Yeah.
But I'm super solid. I know I'm going to make my hit.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get it because it's just sitting there.
Yep.
As long as like a wing call's good.
Yep.
So, I mean, as I shoot more and more of these things, my brain didn't function like that.
No,
before.
we've talked about this.
And so now that I can see it, because I had a fucking hoot this past weekend, man.
Yeah.
I had a hoot, and it was great to work with you. It was great to be able to fall in and like click with just everything from talk-ons. There was only one target that I couldn't find.
Yeah.
And that was my dumbass fault for not establishing a reference point earlier that I knew, because we were kind of rushed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I knew that going into it, I was like, fuck man, you didn't find target number 5.
Yeah.
That's going to fucking bite you. And then but my brain, I was like, hey, we'll figure it out when we get there. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I'll remember. But the talk on stuff, like that's important. I don't want to jump around if I don't want to take it off in a tangent, but like the talk on stuff was super important.
No, and that's what actually, so when the night before, because we met up at the Airbnb. Again, this is our first time working together in a team capacity in a competition. And we're like, all right, hey, what's our priorities of work? What's our workflow? Who's doing what? You know what I mean? And then we talked about, hey, establishing target reference points. What's the biggest thing that you see out there?
Yeah.
And that was assuming that we were going to be shooting blind stages, right? But because we didn't shoot blind stages, I think, at least for me, I've got a pretty good photographic memory. And I think it's just because of all the training that we do as an instructor, and B, like all the competitions that I shoot. Like as soon as I see the lay of the land, like one time, boom, like my brain's got it, right? I know exactly where these motherfuckers are at. And I know a lot of shooters struggle with that.
They do.
It's like, how do you get better at that? It's like, okay, well, yeah, you work from big to small, but you also shoot more matches. You shoot more field style matches.
Yeah, and you practice breaking stuff down. Like, a lot of the people that, especially out at this particular match, I think a lot of the people that were there are hunters, right? So they understand how important it is to take that photographic memory snapshot of what you're looking at, because you know that if you don't, you're going to pay the price for it, right? By a lost opportunity after you work so hard to have that opportunity. Yeah. You only do that once or twice. I mean, you like, imagine if you had blown it on that mule deer. Yeah. Right. Imagine if for whatever reason something happened and that opportunity, like right at the very moment that you were going to press the trigger, he walked behind something and you never saw him again. Yeah. Yep. That's hunting. Yeah. Right. And so you only have that happen to you a couple of times before you're like, fuck everything about that. I'm going to do anything I can to prevent that from happening. Yep. So because you work so hard to have that opportunity, and that's where those lessons come into play. Exactly. But we're not going to learn the lessons unless we're aware of it. Yeah. So,
or exposed to it.
Or exposed to it. Yep. So it's the same thing with like coaching students with wing calls. Yeah. It's like, no, dude, you have to go do that, miss a bunch of targets, and then understand why you missed them. Yeah. Because that's how you're going to learn. Yeah.
So, as we were putting the night before, we were putting together our dope cards, right? Again, with even with a 10 feet per second muzzle velocity off, we still checked our muzzle or our dope out to 1,000. And I think we were
within,
we were
on point out to a grand.
Yeah. We were on point out to a grand. Once I passed a grand, because I mean, these bullets were flat, right? Like
super flat, dude.
With my BRA and with my 6.5 Creed, like once I start to get I think 500, because I run my dope card at every 20 yards.
Me too, yeah.
You start to see a 0.2 difference every 20 yards.
So I noticed that I could go every 50 yards out to about 500 with these bullets.
Yeah, because
enough resolution.
Because every 20 yards only yielded a 0.1 difference.
Yeah.
So
you can extrapolate.
Exactly. When you got into and a lot of the targets were odd targets, right? So you're like, well, shit, am I going to round down or round up?
Well, they were small enough.
Yeah.
They were small enough, most of them, that decision might matter.
Yes.
Based upon what was behind the target.
Yep. Yep.
So some of those targets I would have much rather missed high than low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because of where they were.
Yep.
So it was a great learning experience,
Yeah.
man. That was really cool.
I think what helped us too is like, okay, we established that we had a 7 mile an hour gun, right? So, if you guys ever take a look at our dope cards, on the gram or on social media that we post, like, we'll have our yardages, our main dopes, typically out to 1,000 yards, and then two other columns after that. And I use it red. Kalen, I think it's blue.
Yep.
Right. Is our win values, full value. And there's no point in running the gun number because it's just the range to the
You already
target.
know that.
Right. So because we knew it was going to be cooking, we did a 10 and 15. And honestly, that fucking saved our ass throughout the whole throughout the whole day one, I would say.
Well, even if even then, like when if I have a rifle that's like a 7 mile an hour gun, why not do a 10 to 15?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that between 7 and 10, it's like tomato,
Yeah.
right? You can really easily extrapolate, but knowing that, because I looked at the Windy app, and for those of you guys that are out there, like trying to figure out a better way to like read the predominant direction of the wind, get this app called Windy. There's two of them. There's a blue one and then a red one. I use them both, and I use them a lot for air sports like skydiving and stuff, because they're super accurate when it comes to wind speeds and directions, like to within the hour. And so when I looked at that report, I knew that it was going to hit right around noon.
Yeah.
And dude, just according to everything else, it hit, and it was just like 20 fucking plus.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that the Windy app can help with is that where you're at, like there were many instances where we were on the hillside. We were in the dirty air, meaning where the bullet was going to be in the clean air was a little bit different than where we were.
Yeah. Cause a lot of the times it felt like a fucking no value win because it was rushing up at our face. Cause we were literally we were kind of walking around the crest of the hill.
Yep.
Right. But because of being so high up, that wind is just shooting straight up toward us. Yep. Right. But at no point in time was until the last stage. Right. Because fucking we got hailed on.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That was funny.
Like the last stage was the only time that we held damn near straight up or within the target.
Yep. That's it. Everything else, man, we were holding anything from like, a mil to 2 mils.
2.5 mils was our biggest hold. 850 was mine at the fucking
that's
8-inch
right. It was
plate.
like 2.4, 2.5.
2.5, and then we went out to 1145 on stage 9 at the very end there. 1145 yielded us 2.3 to 2.4.
So this really is like a testament to the accuracy, not only even the accuracy, but the attentiveness to the process. Yes. In terms of like, dude, I started load development the Thursday prior, right?
Yep.
And I had students here. I'm doing stuff during the weekend. It's not like I can sit and dedicate, just sit in the shop for a full day and get it knocked out. But being able to, like, how many, like I fired about 5 shots to get zeroed on Thursday morning, or Thursday evening at like 8:00 at night. I fired 5 shots to get zeroed, 5 more shots to get a muzzle velocity. Then I fired 2 shots at 900. The bullets hit center.
Yep.
And then I fired another 5 shots at 1400 and got 2 hits. And it was like the elevation was only a 10th off at 1400 from what Fordoff said.
It's crazy.
And so it hit dead center at 900 because that was the point, the time of flight, 1.3 seconds. And then I was like, okay, well, that was fucking easy. So let's take it all the way up to 14.
Yep.
And check at 14. It was a 10th off.
Yeah. Yeah.
It called for 12 point. The data called for 12.2 and I ended up with 12.1.
Yeah. So after I did my load development and I did my ladder test, I was like, all right, I'm going with 39.6. It's 30.15. And now what I wanted to do, because I was, the match called for about 175 to 200 rounds. And I was like, oh, fuck, I kind of screwed myself because I only had like 151 pieces of virgin brass. Right. And typically when you have virgin brass and you go to once fired brass, there's this velocity increase. Right. So I was like, all right, in the case that I have to dabble into once fired brass, right? I need to make sure that there's no offset or a velocity increase. So what I did was, after I did my 39.6, found that, I loaded up 15 rounds of virgin, 15 of once fired, because I knew I was going to bring both to the match.
Got it.
Right. And I shot my 5 rounds, and I loaded a couple rounds of, one it, and I shot at the furthest target at the range that I was shooting at was the 1145. And my first one hit, my virgin brass hit the top of the plate, and my once fired went over the plate, but it was only a 0.1 difference, right? And I was like, all right, as long as I, if I have to use twice fired brass, I'll come down another 1/10 from my dope, right? If I do have to make the switch. Thankfully, after day 2, right, or just the conditions of day 2 gave us a low round count.
Yeah.
So I didn't even bleed into. I didn't even bleed in. Like I said, I didn't even bleed into my once fired brass.
Most stages were 6-round stages.
Yeah, for us, yeah. So that's because that was a clean. So the way for those guys that are listening that maybe compete in PRS or NRL proper, not the NRL Hunter, the way that these team matches, and every RTC match is different. Every match director has their own kind of, target scoring and stuff like that. The way that Bill Wood and Peter Howell ran their match was, you have up to 3 engagements per target. The first round impact is 4 points. Second round impact is worth 2 points, and then third round impact is worth 1 point. But you only have up to 3. Very similar to our modern day sniper evaluation.
Pretty much,
right?
Yeah.
The only thing is that
we offer an opportunity to make up points.
So if and most stages had a total of 6 rifle targets, sometimes a few pistol.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
actually,
if they did have a pistol stage, it was 7 targets, 6 rifle, 1 pistol. So in theory, the shooter, each shooter could clean the course of fire in 6 rounds. And I think you and I only probably shot like 2 or 3, maybe not even that, 2, other than the mover and the KYL that were dedicated 12-round stages.
Yep.
I think maybe 1 or 2 we shot over 10 rounds.
Actually, I don't even ever remember doing a mag change other than the KYL and I had some magazine issues on one stage.
I was watching a video when you did have a magazine issue.
I want to talk about that because that's just like straight up weapons manipulation shit.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that I ever did a mag change at all.
Yeah.
Like I never had to do a magazine change other than those 2 that required 12 rounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we always shot something
like 9 or 10 rounds, like right at 10 rounds. Yeah. But day 2, like I cleaned, like I was watching some videos. We cleaned 1 stage together, which was the fence post stage.
Yep.
And then you would either clean 1 and then I would just drop 1. But I think there was like 2 or 3 that I only shot 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Right. Where you had the same, and that was awesome. Right.
It's just, looking at the, from the small target perspective, and like going back to the testament of saying like if we follow the process, you know what I'm saying? Like if we go, hey, we establish the load, we get it consistent, then we consult the Oracle, right? With the computer program. And we're like, hey, this is the muzzle velocity, blah, blah, blah. You plug that shit in, you go check your 0, set 0 angle, confirm at 1.3 seconds time of flight. Everything was cool, but I took it to 14 just because I needed more resolution.
Yep.
And then, dude, we like the morning I checked because I swapped a chassis, right? I swapped a chassis. And so I was like, hey, I just want to make sure that everything is cool. So got to the range early on Saturday, check 0. And I forgot to slip the 10th.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot to slip the 10th. And then everything was jiving. And we smacked a rock a couple times at 650. And we were like, all right, let's go shoot this.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Yep.
I had fired maybe like 25 rounds from this rifle with A-tips in a training environment of like a long range shooting, maybe 25 rounds.
Yeah. I shot 30 rounds. and to actually validate and just trust,
test.
to make sure that the software was driving up with what I'm actually experiencing in real results.
And I think there's something to be said about that, because I have heard people say that, like, no, every bullet's different. And it's like, I don't necessarily believe they are different. They'll yield different data, but the number is the number is the number.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's a 7-mile-an-hour gun, it's a 7-mile-an-hour gun.
Mm.
You know, if your dope at 650 is 3 point whatever, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, so once we learn how to trust that, we can literally go from platform to platform to platform to platform.
Yep.
And yield the same results.
Yep. Yeah, you know, so if you guys are thinking about shooting a team environment, like shooting the same, and that's honestly when Bo and I shot together and it got second behind Godarzi, we made sure that our both 140 LDMs were the exact same. Right. And we were sharing the same dope, same wind calls, right? And you and I, right, there was a couple stages. It was actually at first, it's because when you were cooking up aerodynamic jump inside of your firing solution, right, for a couple of stages, we got to, I think it was a 920.
Yeah,
and
it
I was like, hey, I'm at 5'4", and he's like, all right, I'm calling. Mine calls for 5'8", and I just actually posted the video.
Yep.
I was like, 5'8", no way, dude.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's a good point. Making sure that we are using on the forward off program, making sure that we're using no wind trajectory, because it's overcooked. It's not real. Like, it's real, but it's not what it says it is.
Yeah, and I haven't found a, and that's something that I do want to talk to ballisticians about and propose a question. But anytime that I ever get any of my, and I teach this in class, anytime that I ever get any of my hard dope, I leave my wind on 0.
Yeah, that's something that I overlooked.
Yeah,
I overlooked it, and it was like, oh, okay, no big deal. And you just take it off. It's not a problem.
Yep.
And we ended up having to do that. And I don't know, like, there's some times where I hear shooters say, and I thought about it this week, and they're just like, the wind was messing with me. It was just like this and then like that. And then I asked myself, I'm like, okay, can you shoot, if you're shooting a 1-inch dot drill at 100 yards under these exact same conditions and cadence of fire, would those bullets be going exactly where you place the crosshairs every single time? And we know that is more often than not the case.
Yep.
Right. So even with us, like, I don't, like, sometimes I don't shoot a dot drill that well.
Yeah.
Depends on what's going on in my headspace, or, what am I doing? If I'm shooting a dot drill once a day for a week, then by like the end of that week, I'm going to be really fucking good at a dot drill.
Yeah.
So we got to understand that, there are, like, we do make mistakes.
Yeah.
We do make mistakes. And when the rifles are shooting as well as they are, we have to be able to, if we don't own those mistakes, it's going to send us down a rabbit hole of saying it was the wind, when the reality was we didn't. I mean, there was a couple of stages where we went like maybe 5/10 in terms of wind shift from when we started to when we ended it. But the majority of them were a couple of tenths just to keep ourselves centered in the plate.
Yep.
So, it can be a little strange sometimes. But when we believe the bullet, and we know that we're breaking completely clean shots, and we know that we can verify that we're breaking clean shots with doing dot drills all the time. Like, I got a lot out of what Robert was talking about when he was like, I train for matches by shooting dots at 100 yards.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, dude, there's some credence to that.
Not to like be like super cocky when I say this. I feel like in the way that our dialogue communicated, it was like, hey, if I call out a tenth or whatever, or like whatever, a point value, that means it was a clean break as center as I could to whatever that wind hold was.
That worked perfectly.
Right. And I would say, other than the spool stage, every shot that I broke was as clean as I feel like I could ever make a shot, because it was mostly prone, right? So we had plenty.
Mostly prone. We had a bunch of time.
Not right?
Yep.
And like, you know, I'm like watching these videos, watching my GoPro, and I'm going through the same exact things that I would be doing in training, right?
Dude,
Going,
I wish we had a trigger cam on the
dude, I
guns.
thought about it,
That is
and
so badass.
the only reason why I didn't is because you lose a little bit of, it's like wearing sunglasses, right? You
Yep.
lose a little bit of that, and I feel like if I had it on, especially for a
For
couple
the long
stages,
targets.
I wouldn't be able to see exactly where, you know, either my bullets going or your bullets were going.
Agreed.
And dude, I would have loved to though. Like I even thought about it. I was like, man, I'm thinking about just strapping a GoPro on,
Well,
or not GoPro.
let's see what the Gen 2 yields.
Yeah,
Those are on
yeah,
the way.
yeah.
So
So, um, no, I think you know, it was good. Like what we did before every stage, especially like if by the time we got into the rifle, we weren't completely sure of wind direction or wind speed, we'd sit there and we talk like, hey, all right, this is what a 3 mile an hour is. This is what a 5. This is what a 7. Or like day one was more like, hey, this is what
it
a
was pretty
10. This is
constant.
what a 15, and this is what a
It
20.
was pretty constant.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, like I'm gonna open up with a 15, right? Which is, let's say, I don't know, 1.5, right?
There's a lot of them like
And
that.
then, you know, I called it out. Hey, boom, 1.5, 1.5 didn't work, and then made a correction. You know, you say, hey, off right. Okay, I saw it. I make the correction, and then it boom, 1.8, right? And that's how I'm calling meaning that, hey, those were both clean shots. And that's just the most amount of communication that you and I had to keep everything clear and concise.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
It's almost like that's an instruction.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
instruction
Yeah.
at that point in time. Like if I hear that, and yeah, you're not going to tell me, I don't know. Like, no, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
that's what I held. And then if you call that out and then I watch the bullet splash and it's a tenth to the right,
Yep.
I'm going to say in my brain, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to hold 0.6.
And there was a couple times that we did that. We're like, we
Mhm.
both saw, boom, 1.3. Oh man, I hit left, use 1.2.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
And those targets were small.
Small
enough
as
that
shit.
it
Yeah.
mattered.
Literally, we
It
had to
totally
make
mattered.
0.1 differences.
Because if the wind, so like the first day, the wind was pretty consistent. When it turned on, it was consistent.
Yeah.
For each stage. But the other thing that I realized is that I didn't pay attention to crosswind component nearly as much as I have in the past. Meaning, like, I didn't get super nitty gritty on questioning myself: is it a half value or fucking 3/4, or was it a 3/4 or a full? And as long as we took everything down to a full value wind hold, everything was jiving.
A lot of people still can't wrap their head around that.
Yeah.
Like when that, because that's all I do for my wind, right?
Mhm.
I don't care if it's blowing a half value, a quarter value, whatever the case might be.
It doesn't matter.
I'm figuring out what the
full value
what the
is.
full value effect of that crosswind. So, you know, it was probably blowing fucking 30 miles an hour, to be honest with you, at a couple times.
Several times.
But, you know, because of the value that I was blowing at, I was only using 20 to 20, 22, 23 sometimes. You know.
Yep. The fastest wind call I think we had was like 22.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
So.
and yeah, I mean, I couldn't even stress to you how fucking small these targets were, guys. Like anyone that you know, anyone that's fucking listening to this that shot there is probably nodding their head like, yeah, it was a fucking tough match. And
Well, it was prone, right? And so aside from, and if the wind conditions weren't what they were,
yeah,
we would have seen a lot higher scores on a lot of those.
yeah,
Basically just because of the fact that it was prone.
yep.
And then if a guy pays attention to getting good data, his bullets are going to eventually hit the target,
Yeah.
as long as he's okay on his wind corrections.
Yep.
Right.
So I think I want to dip into the mental headspace of because, you know, I'm sure the question is going to get asked like, all right, like how did you feel on day one in terms of your performance, and like if you knew at that point you had a chance at winning, you know. And I feel like after our first 4 stages in our performance, and just as a competitor knowing and knowing the caliber of shooters that were there, I was like, man, like we are hitting some pretty fucking tough targets in some really tough conditions. And like because we were connecting, I was like, man, I know a lot of teams in general are going to struggle with this that are not like in the top 5, right? But even the top 5 guys are going to be struggling with these impacts. But we were connecting, and I was like, man, we're doing really fucking good, you know. And And the score showed, because after fourth place, I mean, the scores dropped dramatically.
It's like 60 points.
Yeah. And you know, talking to Bill, he said that we were even up. We were up at first after day one, and we had a 78% hit on day one.
That's savage, dude. That's fucking
The
savage.
winning team, and like it was so close though. He said that like the top 4 teams were within 8 points of each other, which was 2 targets, right? So it was a close race, and we got to we ended it. He didn't show us the scores, but we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. Like, hey, like our non-attachment to the outcome was we were just showing up to have fun, to shoot together for the first time as a team, and to just see kind of where we stacked against, again, seasoned competitors who are shooting a lot these days, right? Especially who have shot a lot together at these RTC events, and again, I wasn't surprised with our performance and our communication and our chemistry, obviously, because A, we're cut for the same class. B, we're fucking, we're obviously a team at Modern Day Sniper together. It was just, everything was just connecting fucking so well. And like, I mean, I also have to give it up to these fucking bullets. Like, I'm gonna plug these bullets pretty fucking hard, because like, I've shot a lot of ELDMs, shot a lot of fucking 140s, 108s, shot a lot of factory the last couple of years because of the previous employer that I worked for, just because it was a lot cheaper to get, and I just didn't have available. Yeah, it was available. I didn't have time, and then earlier this year I was running burgers, 105s. Those are great bullets, and then these, I mean, like when I connected at a fucking 8-inch plate at 850 yards.
Yep, that's
20-mile-an-hour wind.
That's badass.
I was like, all right, these bullets are for real.
Yeah, legit. Yeah, and like everybody's experience with them is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was that they performed in terms of load development like a hybrid, like a burger hybrid, and they have insane amounts of consistency.
Yeah.
My barrel's at 1.7.5. I think if you were to build a barrel specifically for those bullets at sea level, I would probably want to go like 1.7 or 1.7.25.
Yeah.
Just because we're kind of at the ragged edge. But we experienced some weirdness at the match in terms of elevation that I want to understand a little bit more of.
Yeah.
Or I want to try to understand a little bit more of. And that was why we were a little bit more, why we're a little higher.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, guys, what we were experiencing is, because both Kayla and I zeroed on Saturday, and we were super confident with our muzzle velocities inputted. Around like 450 and plus, right? We were seeing a 10, sometime a 2/10 difference in our dope, both of us, more specifically you than me, in terms of like hitting like the top of the plate or just barely going over.
Well, remember I didn't take the 10th out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a 10th in there for mechanical.
Yep.
In terms of zero, pardon me, but both of us were experiencing an additional 10th for drag.
Yeah.
Something with drag. And we were shooting targets small enough that we could definitively say that a 1/10 of a mil would make the correction to consistently hit it.
Yep.
And so that's a drag issue, right? That's something in the algorithm that is either not picking up the difference in drag that the bullet's experiencing, or not accounting for it. The only thing that I can potentially think of is the stability factor of the projectile at that altitude, at that density altitude.
And so again, I'm not a ballistician, but I try to shoot in various parts of the country. And honestly, like I'm just say this, like, can you even call yourself a national competitive shooter if you've never jumped on a plane? Like, yeah, if you drive cross country, good on you, but there's a lot of competitors out there that talk up shop, but have never left their home region, right? And they stay at the same altitude. And like I think I talked about, like when I went to the East Coast shooting my 105 hybrids, my axial form factor from Cody didn't line up to the performance of that bullet at
Right.
closer to sea level,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I actually noticed the same thing in California, because I was shooting low, right? And I got it on video. It's like I was fucking shooting low, and I didn't believe the bullet until I saw my fucking trace. Until I saw my trace in the prone, right? Because I was like, oh, when I was low, I was in a position. It was probably I always blame myself first.
Sure.
Fucking shooter error.
Absolutely.
Never want to believe the bullet until like fucking like 4 times a fucking charm. And I was like, all right, something's fucking up. Well, thankfully, when I shot the East Coast match at MKM, I think that the altitude there was only like 1500. I rechronoed and I tried to use I think it was like a 0.97. What I use up here in Cody. Try to use a 0.97, and I was hitting low, right? I was like, right. So rechecked my chronograph, everything's good. So I just zeroed it out back to 1.0, and I was fucking fine.
Right. So that has to do, from what I understand, a lot of that has to do with the bullet's precession, and precession is dictated by, it's basically the wobble of the projectile as it flies through the sky. And obviously the higher the frequency, or the more the wobble in layman's terms, the more surface area is going to be presented to the relative wind.
Yep.
And so mapping that is like new territory.
Yep.
So that potentially could be something that we're experiencing, because to actually mapping that is ridiculously difficult to do mathematically.
Yep.
Because it's really difficult to get a model of what's actually happening. But we know that it happens. We just don't have something that effectively models it.
Yep.
So that would be something, because if we would have used the data that incorporated aerodynamic jump into the equation, we would have been all over the place.
Yeah, we would have super.
We would have been super crazy,
all day.
And it would have. Think about that mentally.
Yep.
What that would have done. It would have completely unseated the focus and said,
Yep.
man, I got a problem.
Yep.
I have an issue.
Yep.
But not relying on that and using just straight up no wind data.
Yeah.
And going with the full value wind speed.
Yeah.
Yielded perfect elevation.
Well, so I think, and I don't ever see enough people do it, and I'm just going to continue to say this. Maybe people in the Pacific Northwest, but like any other place that I go with competitive shooters, I mean, those motherfuckers stay on their kestrel. It's wrapped around their neck, and like when they start having elevation issues, guess what they start doing? They start manipulating shit in their kestrel.
Messing with the kestrel, yeah.
Right? They start fucking putting numbers in there, the inflating numbers that they shouldn't be, and like. I always write a fucking.
What do we do?
As soon as I get on Friday, I get my altitude.
We said, hey,
DA means nothing to me. That's another thing. Get away from DA, guys.
Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean shit. Get a relative altitude, right? Figure out your average temperature and your humidity, right? And then write a dope card out from fucking 100 to 1,000, and maybe if you're going to be shooting deeper, maybe go out to 1,400, right? Which is what we did. But that is now my fucking chart. Yep. Right. And I don't stray away from it. And if there's a deviation, guess what? I'm just making a 10th difference. Right. And I see it. And
that's what we did.
That's what we did.
It said, hey man, it's like from here on out, take a 10th off of everything. And we're smashing center.
Now's not the time to figure it out. I'm not going into my fucking Kestrel or my Ballistic app. And I'm like, not trying to inflate numbers. Oh, this is what was going to line up. It's like, no. Hey, guess what? I'm a 10th high consistently, so I don't care if I'm shooting at fucking 400 or 800. Guess what? I'm coming a 10th down on my dope. And it worked. And it worked, right? It worked out the whole match. Yeah,
there was some like the thing that I reinforced a lot of learning points after this weekend in terms of just processing information, visually processing information from where the bullet lands. And really, really staying focused. That was one of those events that if you just cared about hitting the plate, you might not hit the second plate. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't carry that adjustment in terms of wind speed in your brain and applied that to the next target range, you would most likely miss.
Yeah.
Because they were so small.
Yep.
You couldn't carry very often, like depending on if the spread was inside 100, because we had a couple of stages where the spread was way more lateral and the range depth was 100 less or less. It's okay to carry a 10th across the targets, but when you go deep, everything's got to be mile an hour. Everything has to be mile an hour.
Yeah, and you have to pay attention to the mirage.
100%.
So day 2 off the truck.
Probably,
probably a very difficult stage, especially on day 1 for those poor bastards, right? In those wind conditions. So the way that we shot off a truck, because I'm assuming we shot off the back of a truck because there was so much sagebrush, right? But it was a pretty wide field of like lateral fire. Target distances weren't bad. Like I think we started at like 400, and the furthest target was 640. But it was a pretty wide spread. And I just watched this video. Target 1, 2, 3, and 4 all yielded the same direction and pretty much value. We got to target 5,
and I missed.
Well, no, I was like, Kalen, I'm gonna hold straight up, because this is where, remember, when we get to that angle, we started seeing that right to left.
Which one did I miss on that?
No, you missed the straight up, and it was off the left because mirage started to really pick up.
That's right.
Right.
And I didn't notice it. Yeah.
No. Well, because I shot on center and I hit it. And then I shot it just right before wind really picked up.
I guess what I'm saying is that like I was so focused, as soon as you said center, I was so focused on putting center hold on. I didn't check the mirage before I shot.
Yep.
But it had shifted.
Yep.
And it pushed me off the left edge.
Yep. And then, you made only a 0.1 correction to get back on target and you hit it.
Yep.
And then same thing for the last target, 640. We both dialed. I think I held it because you had a hold. So now I was like, okay, I'm going to carry that wind call over to this next one. I think I held 2/10, and then you tried to hold 2/10, but you were also high again, right? And off the left, and then you came down and then add another 10.3, and then you connected, right? But that was we saw some really good teams in front of us shoot that. Bo and Sky that were right behind us shot that afterwards, and they said they had a tough time. I know that was a tough stage, especially with how bad the mirage was,
and the how bad the mirage was in the wind patterns, because there was like a little draw. I know just from understanding the terrain out there, that draw between us and those targets was deep, and that wind was getting sucked through that draw at a lot higher speed than like where the bullet's going through the air. That wind's going faster than where we see it.
So like I think, before shooting a 6 Creed at this type of event, let's say if I came to this event with like a 6.5 Creed, more like a 6 BRA, I think my thoughts of this match were probably shooting like a Magnum, like a PRC. That we talked about this, right? Like shooting a PRC, or something heavy that was able to buck the wind. But honestly, I think I wouldn't change the 6 Creed more, because especially on day 2, when I was able to see every single trace of mine, like, and that was actually a question that I asked the team that was shooting with us, like, hey, are you able to see your trace? Because they were shooting BR variants, and he wasn't. And again, I talk about this with dwell time, right? Talk about this with training with a heavier cartridge to essentially train your brain to deal with that recoil impulse, so that you're able to recover faster, to be able to see that bullet fly in the air. And guys that were having elevation issues never made the correction because they couldn't see where they were missing.
Yeah.
Right?
That'll kill you.
Yeah.
On targets like that, where...
and especially how the backdrop, and I kind of wish like we had at least some kind of like phone scope up, so that, because when you watch our videos that we probably put on here,
if you weren't seeing trace, you would not see where you missed.
Yeah, because just the stage front, everyone that was there knows that. Like everyone was talking about it. It's like just the way the backdrop laid and the ground laid, like
many times.
Yeah.
Like every target that we missed, the only indication, aside from like there were some out on the first day we're out in the dirt. Right?
Yeah.
They were out in the dirt. You could see the splash.
Yep.
But like the sagebrush stuff, no, man, I'm looking, I can see the disturbance of the air to the left of the target. And it's just like, oh shit. Okay. I need to add 2/10 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that was going to save you, because that sage is going to swallow the bullet up and you're not going to see it.
Yep.
And there's something to be said for that. Like there is something to be said for, from a military sniper perspective, that if you could teach a dude how to do that, right? Like if he was shooting a weapon system that he was able to do that,
Yeah.
and see that,
Yeah.
that's like, that dude would be deadly accurate.
Yeah.
Savage.
I would say with the 308 in the prone, I can start seeing my trace past 500.
Yep.
400 and in, it's just too close. I'm
You're
still
not recovered yet.
not recovered yet.
Well,
Right.
think about it. Like that is in a perfect position.
Mhm.
That's a perfect position.
Yeah.
That's not,
3 fucking rocks in your ribs.
yeah, or you've just physically exerted
Yeah.
yourself to the point of exhaustion,
Yeah.
and you still have to do shit.
Yeah.
Like there's no way it's happening. We're literally hoping that we can see the splash, and get recovered fast enough, because everything's, the position, your physical exertion, all the things that go into that. But if you could get a dude a platform that is, that recoiled light enough, but the bullet performed well enough to have the terminal effects that we're looking for, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
Yeah. Like I think why I was able to really like see every fucking bullet, and like I couldn't even make this up if I wanted to, right? Was because again, all the positional class, I was shooting my unbreak 308.
Dude, I could watch your bullet,
Yeah.
like in the quadrant of my scope, fly in and hit the target.
There's a couple of times that I made mid-flight corrections. Like I already knew when I pressed that wind hold, I was like, oh fuck, I'm off the right, or it was not enough wind, right? And I'm in my brain thinking, okay, I need to add another 10th or 2 to this follow up, right? Yeah, dude, it's like seeing trace as a shooter. I think that's where, like, what the next step is. I think when a lot of people ask, okay, well, what's the next step in my process? Like, well, what are the percentage of trace that you can see for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes sometimes even dangerous to have a backdrop where the berm is directly behind the target, especially when the target's too small, right? And close, because that bullet gets there and then you just see a puff of smoke.
Yep.
Right. And you're like, fuck.
Really hard to find out exactly where it landed.
Did that go left, right, or fucking underneath?
Yep.
Unless you're able to follow the trace all the way to that target. Sometimes, like I said, that having that immediate backdrop is not good.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. That was just all in all, fantastic learning experience.
Yeah. We'll do a gear video. I'm sure you guys are gonna ask us what gear you ran.
I did one. I did a little vlog. I'm gonna edit it this weekend.
Okay.
And I can get that up. I got a lot of videos to edit, man.
Yeah.
I got the rifle painting video to edit. I got my truck vlog video to edit. And I got the gear video from Granite Creek to edit. So
Nice.
a lot of video editing, but it's all going to be great content. I'm super pumped for it. I'm going to do a blog on this, a typed blog on this event as a debrief. We'll post it up in the network.
Yep.
And then we'll direct traffic to it. We'll do an email on it too.
Yeah. Especially for I would say our community of modern day riflemen, trying to make the most well-rounded riflemen that we can. These types of matches, and not to take away from the PRS or NRL, because I'm still going to compete in them. Like I said, I believe the PRS and NRL for a modern day rifleman has a purpose of where you can just focus on increasing your shooting craft.
Yeah,
because that is the only thing that you're doing.
Explanation.
Yeah, you're sharing wind calls and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you still have to pull your own trigger. Yep. You still have to build your own shooting position. So people can sit there, the fucking guys can sit there and it's like, oh, it's all just, everyone's sharing wind calls. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you still have to build your own shooting position, and you still got to press your own trigger, right? So, people that shoot really do RTC matches, well, how well did they do in an individual match? Because those that shoot those individual matches easily can cross over to these matches,
Right.
right? Because they already have the shooting aspect down. Now and all they have to do is figure out how to find targets and lays on the clock, right? So it's just different, right?
I think we should shoot the team safari in October.
Yeah.
I think we should do that.
Yep.
That'd be a good one.
That'd be good.
Because I've got experience shooting the steel safari. I know how Zach and Ray run the match. So I'm looking forward to that. I love their format, and I've always wanted to do a team match there in that format.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be good. We definitely want to. I want to shoot more. Has Mammoth opened? I don't think it's opened yet.
I don't think it's.
We should shoot Mammoth.
We should shoot Mammoth because I mean the rucking is whatever. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
So let's just.
We won't fucking hashtag the fuck out of it and training for Mammoth, all that shit.
For Mammoth.
Not to like take a stab at you guys, but
to take a stab at you guys.
Yeah. So everyone that was commenting on our picture today from our congratulatory post, I would say about 90% of you guys
y'all were
noticed
on the whiskey, man.
my half bottle that I broke into.
It wasn't even a half bottle. It was literally.
It was like this.
It was like that.
Okay, so to give you guys a backstory, obviously we had a hell of a day.
Yep.
And we won the match, and we were rewarded this. We were in Montana, which is what, 9 hours?
9 hours from here. Yeah.
9 hours. So Kaylin and I knew prior to, like, okay, we're gonna camp closer to halfway back home to Yakima, because I was gonna be out here for all of June. And we found a camping spot and broke this wide open, and talked about our performance and talked about what we've got in the future of modern day sniper, and
enjoyed just an evening of chill by the fire, by a campfire.
So because of you guys that was so concerned, we decided to go ahead and finish the rest of the bottle on this podcast, and wrap up with some housekeeping.
Yep.
And some what's next.
So we got a lot of really cool shit coming down the pipe.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
So we got a lot of really rad shit coming. So just released the positional shooting course. That's like that course is amazing. You did a fantastic job, dude. Like super detail oriented. Exactly what I expected from your performance. Like you killed it. And if you guys haven't checked that thing out, man, I would have to say that that's probably going to be our most sought after digital course up to this point, because I think that's where a lot of people's pain points are.
Yeah.
Is just the positional shooting aspect of it. I need to get better at this, but I don't really understand the roadmap of how to get there.
Yeah. So
that happened. The subscription service is growing daily. That's been amazing. Something else to remember, guys, like if you were, try to let everybody know that if you guys bought our online stuff on the original platform, like the Modern Day Sniper Schoolhouse, we've changed that platform over to a new one. And that new one is over at moderndayRifleman.com. And we've been sending everybody emails, and we know deliverability of emails can get a little dicey at times. So if you're listening to this and you're a customer over at the Kajabi site, please do us a favor and migrate over to the Modern Day Rifleman side, because there will be a time we shut that platform down, because the Mighty Network, where we have the Modern Day Rifleman platform, is just by far and away far superior. Like we'll talk about that at a later time, but everybody get on over there. So what else we got? What else we got coming?
So we've got some in-person classes coming out here in Yakima. Kalen's doing a positional course, and he's also doing a wind clinic, I think mid July. Right.
Yep. And if the wind gods do anything to us like we've had done in the last couple of years, it's friggin' nuclear out there.
We've got a backcountry hunter course at the end of June.
Yep. We got slots available for that, guys. That's going to be awesome. If you're looking to do some rad backcountry adventures, that's a course that we just love teaching. We witness a lot of people's transformations on that course. Like people go through that course and majority of the people have never done anything like that before. And so they experience a huge transformation in terms of like, hey, I accomplished this.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could do this
Yeah.
before. And so it's a really badass course. The
Espe-
weather is going to be nice for it.
Especially if you've never been mentally tested,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Totally.
You definitely need to come in shape. Um, and yeah, just it would be wise of you just come in shape and
Yep.
hydrated, right?
Yep.
If you're thinking about coming to the course, you need to stop drinking soda. You need to stop eating fast food. You don't need to go on a crazy like Atkins diet, but we highly recommend making sure you clean up as much as your eating habits as you
Mm-hmm.
can, because I've had a couple students that came through the class that came through Heart Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that I just wasn't prepared,
Right.
but he came back and
Yep.
crushed it.
Oh yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah, yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
I love that guy, man.
yeah, dude.
He's so cool.
Solid individual, man.
Yeah.
Super, super
Yeah,
good dude.
he's been here for reloading mentorship.
Oh,
too.
is he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy's
yeah.
badass.
That was so. We don't have dates yet. I'm gonna talk to Pete Knipe, our good friend from Precision Shooting Solutions, that locked us on with Heart Mountain, and we're gonna get some dates for some more. So look, be on the lookout for that. We're gonna have a lot more concurrent courses in Cody and in Yakima
Mm-hmm.
um, to train with us. And then I would say that most of the travel courses is when you and I will be together.
Yep.
But I think based off of how just the growth and locking on venues closer to home, I could see us running
Mm-hmm.
those concurrent courses and,
Totally.
and stuff like that.
Yep.
Um,
We're going to continue to expand on both the digital side as well as the in-person side. So expect to see a bunch more courses offered in 2021.
in
Or I'm sorry,
2022.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah, we got some pretty exciting news for you guys in terms of potential partnerships between a manufacturer rifle building company
Mm-hmm.
and a training venue that are very, very respected in the industry.
Yep.
We haven't ironed out the details of how that relationship looks like, but it's very promising, and we're definitely excited to. Yeah, it's not going to be one of those like, oh, we're going to be teaching here. It's going to be like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
marketing's going to be on point for this, just because I mean it's important, right? It's like the firearms industry is so behind in terms of marketing. I mean, I feel like most of the firearms industry, their idea of marketing is sending their product to a fucking chick that's hot, quote slash influencer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a person that's got a bunch of following, right? And promoting their product.
Yep. Agreed.
And it's like, no, that's not the way it's done. And you know, nothing we do here at Modern Day Snipers average, and nothing we do is going to mimic what other firearms companies doing. We are pulling our ideas from industries outside of the firearms community.
That's true.
That's where I generate a lot of my like marketing ideas from.
Yep.
So
For sure, man.
but this was good.
Yeah, it was really good. I'm pumped. We got the whole week together. I'm gonna be starting a master class here pretty quick. The
Tripod class?
tripod shooting. We've got some wind stuff. We're gonna start doing like little miniature classes, like little miniature lessons that are a little bit more, I guess, easily digestible in a shorter amount of time. So that's something that we're gonna be focusing on here in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Check out, yeah, like I said, guys, check out that positional. A lot of guys get questions, and we probably should do a video about this, but a lot of guys ask like, oh, if it's a one-time purchase and then I got to watch all 4 hours and take copious amount of notes? It's like, no. Once you buy it, you own that bitch for life. And we're going to add to it. Actually, I'm going to add more stuff to it this week after doing some more classes this week because, stuff's going to come up, some new techniques, or maybe, it's new, some troubleshooting that I'm finding with, building a shooting position. But right now that course has over 60 videos, 4.5 hours of content. And if anyone that has taken a PR 101 or 201 class with us so far, I mean, my positional class is an hour and a half at tops, right? And I mean, you chew, choke, swallow that bitch. And like the amount of retention that you have from that actual is probably 20%. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Right. So unless you record me for those 4.5, that 1.5 hours, you're probably not going to remember much. And not only that, I'm like giving you like an abbreviated version because obviously we want you to shoot.
Well, that's the overall benefit of being
Yeah.
digital, right?
Yep.
You're not
Yep.
constrained by time.
Yep.
You can do whatever it is that you feel as though you need
to.
to
Yep.
teach the subject.
And I loved it, right? I was able to go into the depths that I wanted to with each video of like, hey, how, because I get the question asked, how are you building your standing? How are you building your kneeling? What are you doing? And I went into all that in the video, and um and again, like I said, I'm gonna add to it. And and if you guys are listening to this and you already purchased this, don't watch it all at once. You need to like watch
break it up,
a piece of it,
apply
and then
it.
go straight out and apply it.
Yep.
Right? Like whether it be a dry fire or whatever, I would say not really a dry fire. I would say unless you're looking for the stability aspect, but like, maybe watch a section on a Friday before getting ready to head to the range on Saturday, and then go immediately apply it. And then make sure you bring your phone, make sure you have service, and then rewatch it 3 or 4 times as you're trying to do it, just like a workout, right? Like there's a couple workouts that I've done. Like, I mean, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just watch the person, because we have so many assets. I just watch him how he's doing his movements, and I try to mimic that until I get it right. So
exactly.
But yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the love and support, especially for those that shot Granite Creek.
Everybody was very, very gracious and appreciative, and it's like it's super humbling for us too. So we appreciate every one of you guys.
I forgot, I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important. Probably the coolest stage that I've ever shot so far was the mover with the hostage.
Oh yeah.
So mover stages go usually pretty quick, right? Because like you can burn, I mean, they're typically 2-minute stages, but you can burn all 12 of your rounds in real fast. So the way that Peter and Will set this stage up is that he had a target at 450 yards. You had a confirmation target. You got to hit the confirmation target, make sure your dope's good. And then you had a probably 50% IPSC.
Yep.
Right? On probably like a, I don't know, 40-foot track.
It was short. It was a short track.
In front of that track were 4 IPSCs, full IPSCs, in a fucking big ass tree.
Maybe like 2.5 mils was the max window.
Yeah, on the far left.
On the far left, yeah.
And so you had to shoot the mover, right, while it was in between these hostage targets.
And we were shooting 6 creeds at 3,000 with some super ninja bullets, and our lead was 1.5
to center.
Like, and Travis and Jesse shot a 38, and we shot a 36.
34.
A 34, and they were shooting 308.
308s, yeah.
So their lead was probably
like 1.8.
1.8 time, like if not 2.0, depending on what was happening. But
yeah, so if
man,
so the shooter 1 shot all 12 rounds. You had to have two shots per pass, which I fucked up on a couple passes, so I lost 2 points there. But as soon as any of the shooters, so if the first shooter or even the second shooter, any of the shooters shoot a hostage target,
your score's over with.
Your score is over with. You keep the points that you accrued, but you're done shooting. And I was like, dude, that is so legit.
That's savage, man.
Yeah.
I was like, man.
Yeah. We ended up getting all of our rounds off.
The last round that I fired was an impact, and I missed one of those things, but I was like, I have to hit this fucking target.
Yeah.
Sent it, and it was like right over
or like over the shoulder, over the head. God. But that was probably one of my funnest stages.
It was fun.
That I've shot.
Yeah,
because they had like an O face, they had like a sad face.
Yep.
Just again from a match director, stage design standpoint, good job, Bill and Peter, and everyone that's listened to this that shot it is probably laughing. Some of you guys did probably shoot the hostage and were like, God damn it. But overall fun stage. But
yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed it, leave us a comment. Check us out on Instagram, Modern Day Sniper. Our individual handles, Kalen8541 and Vallejo_0317.
Check us out on the Mighty Network at moderndayRifleman.com. That's where we're living. It's a community. We just passed 1,000 members, and it is, we released it February 4th. So there's all kinds of cool conversations happening in there already. So jump on in, become a part of our community, and check out what we got. So until next time, guys.
You guys know the drill. Keep your face on the gun. Peace.
With a 0.3. Yep, 0.3.
We get closer, right? I'm gonna do a 0.2.
Okay. No, wrong target.
Oh, fuck me.
Wrong target. Check your dope.
No, yeah, you're good. Yep, I fucked up. God. Ah, it's gonna fucking kill me, dude.
0.3.
0.2.